There's something I want to tell you about the stress and how we have to look at stress. Okay? And I think it's an important thing because many people have told me from my lectures it's the one thing they remember. Okay? I was sitting in a dentist's office and looked at an article that said, "How do lobsters grow?" Well, I don't care how lobsters grow. But I was interested in it. And it points out that a lobster is a soft, mushy animal that lives inside of a rigid shell. That rigid shell does not expand. Well, how can the lobster grow? Well, as the lobster grows, that shell becomes very confining. Right? And the lobster feels itself under pressure and uncomfortable. It goes under a rock formation to protect itself from predatory fish, casts off the shell, and produces a new one. Well, eventually, that shell becomes very uncomfortable as it grows, right? Back under the rocks. Good. And the lobster repeats this numerous times. The stimulus for the lobster to be able to grow is that it feels uncomfortable. Right? Now, if lobsters had doctors, they would never grow. Because as soon as the lobster feels uncomfortable, goes to the doctor, gets a Valium, gets a Percocet, feels fine, never gets off its shell. So I think that we have to realize that times of stress are also times that are signals for growth. And if we use adversity properly, we can grow through adversity.
You mentioned earlier about the distress and that discomfort um, kind of pushing you in a certain way. Do you kind of want to lead us off on that train of thought since that kind of came up organically?
Yeah, definitely. That was great. Yeah, when you said Jerry, I was looking to see if my mom was yelling for me or something. But Christian names are fine. Hey, so no, so Mario's talking about this thing he shared. It was sort of like a graph of there's good stress out there, and there's also bad stress. There's too much stress. There's just enough to get you to get motivated to make a change for the positive. So I was, thinking about the lobster scenario, a metaphor for growth. You feel some discomfort that, stirs up some drive to go off and, be vulnerable and grow, right? And so that makes sense to me. But my thought was the last couple days was, what if you feel that discomfort, but you don't go off and cast your shell that's not working for you and find a way to be vulnerable and find a way to grow? What if you just instead dealt with the pain and discomfort? And that's really where I ended. There was a lot of people that are doing that right now. They're just dealing with the pain, dealing with the discomfort in a way that may be not healthy or lead to growth. Um, you know, Self-medicating is one. There's all kinds of psychological mechanisms that you can try to, shift the blame to somebody else, or, just drink yourself stupid until you don't feel the pain anymore, and then you're back in your same shell, and tomorrow's the same day. So my question was, how do you take somebody from a place where that's a destructive reaction to discomfort to a positive where it's growth? And then when Mario shared this thing was like, what is the optimal strength factor? And maybe we can show that slide at the end, but it was all about support. And I thought, there it is. That's it, support. So if you're struggling to grow, like this lobster naturally just feels stress and goes off and grows, right? Well, we're not going to do that. We need more. Support is a really important piece, I think, and peer support like this group and others like it can help us to encourage each other to go and do something positive, or to notice a signal and say, hey man, you've kind of been hitting the bottle a lot lately, and it's affecting work, and it's affecting your relationships. Can we talk? Got something on your mind? Let's talk and see what we can do about it. And that's support, and maybe that's what helps bring that person out of, I'm going to deal with the pain only, and change their mindset to, yeah, well, let me try something positive. Let's go for a walk and talk. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mario. That was just what I was looking for. The big question was, what if it doesn't work? What if you can't grow? So I'll throw that out to the group and stop talking.
Wilson or PJ or Paul or whoever anybody here knows me. I think that's true you have to find that place. And it wasn't really emphasized as much in this video, but one of the key parts from that rabbi video was he talks a lot about shedding the shell, and that discomfort is that signal for growth. But he also kind of went over that lobster goes under a big rock to protect itself from predators while it's doing this. And that's that seeking a safe place. And that safe place is critical to the process. So they need to have that security, that feeling that this is somewhere where they can shed that outer covering that's holding them in to grow back. And without that security, also the growth is not possible. So it's both the discomfort signaling that it's necessary, and the security that you do have a place to do that in. And you were talking about that feeling of trying to self-medicate and stuff like that. Something that I've heard before from other counselors, and yes, I've been to other counselors before, and it was very visual to me and really hit, is the idea of white knuckling it. And that really hit in my mind, is like, because that's that image of you're really holding on, and you're gonna just white knuckle through the stress or whatever is going on, and that's just not gonna cut it. Eventually you'll lose that grip and you'll fail. So you need to find that security, that place where you feel comfortable to shed that discomfort and grow again. So that's mine, and I'll throw that out to the group.
The key is that lobster finding a rock or a place to be protected while it's vulnerable, so that it can find a new shell. With you having gone through everything that you have, now you're out of the military and life looks something different for you. Can you look at the last couple of years and think, this is when I was casting off a shell, and this is what a rock may have looked like to me at some point in my life during this transition, whether it was a place, a person, a group of people, because I think that's important. Paul, you brought up a great point. But what are those? We know what a rock looks like to a lobster, but in our lives in COVID right now, whether we're still in the military or out, what does that rock look like? What does it look like to you, Jeremy?
So I think that rock could look a lot of different ways for different people. But I would just say that in my particular situation, my rock was that support group that Gerbo was talking about. That was probably the most effective group of people in my corner to kind of push me past my level of comfort. So whenever I was transitioning out of the military, I was doing intern work. So I was up there for a while, and that was seeming like a pretty promising gig. And then during the course of all that, another opportunity came up, right? And it was kind of a new and exciting opportunity that I didn't know existed. So as I transitioned away from that, there was a lot of fear of, am I walking away from something that's already a solid gig? So there was a lot of risk involved in that, right? Because once I walked away from that, I'm probably not going to be coming back into that. And to be honest with you, that was a very scary place. And my rock in that particular situation could have been staying there and not going, to seek out this other opportunity. So I think one of the key extracts from that story is that rock should be a temporary thing, right? That's our temporary place until that new shell is developed. And I think in regards to post-traumatic growth, I think people tend to come back and not want to take risks, whatever that risk looks like to them. So maybe that risk is going to a mall or a crowded place, right? And a lot of people just avoid that, and they hide in their rock, which would be their house, or a familiar place. So I think what has served me best is to, in some way, like the video is talking about, in some way become uncomfortable and kind of put myself out there and be vulnerable and accept a little bit of risk in order to grow. And in my particular situation, I could say that taking those risks served me well.
Now that you have hindsight and you've gotten through the storm, if you will, you're able to look back at it a little bit more objectively and see the mistakes and where you learned and where you grew from. Probably wasn't the prettiest process in the world, I'm assuming, right?
Is life ever perfect? I mean, that's just, life in general. We're imperfect beings. Gerbo wrote me once, this was years ago, and you said something to me in an email that kind of resonated with me for a long time, and that is that we're flawed at the molecular level. I forget what it was in regards to, maybe while I was at NCOA or something like that. I reached out to you, asking you some questions. But yeah, we're not perfect. Of course, I can look back and say, and second guess the decisions that I made, and wish that I had done it a different way. But I try to find gratitude in where I'm at now, and try to say, oh, okay, well, if I hadn't made this mistake, it wouldn't have brought me to where I currently am right now. And I'm actually very grateful to be where I am right now. So sometimes those mistakes, although they can sting in a certain moment, they could be wrapped up as blessings in disguise later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I appreciate that.